So James, we all go out and see a lot of customers. What would you say are some of the most frequently asked questions?
So some of the frequently asked questions that we get more so than others is one is going to be, is it the right time to prune my trees? Mm-hmm. And when people ask me that, the first thing I start with is, well, it really depends on your objective, right? If your main objective is that you want to, mitigate hazard, then we're going to want to prune as soon as possible, especially if you have large dead limbs in your tree that are hanging over your house or heavily walked areas or things like that, but if it's, it could have a lot to do with location, right? I mean, if you're in an area that we know we have a high infestation of a certain disease mm-hmm. that's active at a certain time, and that transfers through open wounds or root grafting, when it's most active, then we probably won't want to prune during those times.
Right.
So I think it has a lot to do with what your objective is and where we're at and what we're going through.
Yeah, I tell my customers that there's never a bad time to properly prune your tree, and there's never a good time to badly trim your tree. Mm-hmm. Because, even in the heat of the summer, we can still prune trees, even though it's 1,000,000 degrees outside, but we're a little more careful in what we take out. But like you said, we always try and look at it from the objective side. Why are we removing this limb or this section of a tree or even these plant parts? Because if we're not meeting a goal, then why would we remove that limb?
Yeah, there always has to be a reason for taking something off. Somebody used to say to me, I mean, you wouldn't cut your pinky off for no reason, right? So make sure if you're taking off, especially on a mature tree that we know could be, X years old, it took X amount of time to produce that limb, and we're just going to cut it off in 5 minutes. To me, that's a little bit silly.
Yeah, when we start talking about big cuts, I always worry about the length of time it will take to heal versus rot or decay set in there. And that can introduce, maybe this limb, aesthetically you want it gone, but if you're making this big wound, you're going to introduce opportunity for other stuff, even though you may accomplish whatever the objective is. Mm-hmm. And that's where, ourselves as arborists owe it to the customers to say, well, we understand that, but here's the potential consequence for mm-hmm. those actions.
Yeah, that's why it's really important to, use a certified arborist, because they'll understand, the difference between a tree that may be able to compartmentalize or seal itself a lot quicker and easier than another tree.
Right.
You wouldn't do to a shoe-marred red oak that you would do to a live oak, because they have different healing processes, or the same, but just one of them is a lot better at it.
So what's another common question that you get on a site visit?
So another one is, it'll be mid-December or, midsummer, and someone asks, well, is this an okay time to fertilize my trees? When we're talking about fertilization, most of the time we're talking about a biannual treatment program. Mm-hmm. So twice a year, every 6 months is ideally what we would do. And so if we're doing that twice a year, it doesn't really matter when we start, because we always have everything readily available in the soil when we need it. So there's never a lack of what we're applying in the ground for those trees. So the best time to start for me is whenever I start to see stress factors or I go out to the property.
Right. And the way that our fertilizer blend and mixture works, it's got a lot of soil building properties to it, to where we're not just fertilizing the tree, we're feeding the overall soil, which promotes the overall plant health. And then, of course, we're fertilizing the tree, supplementing it with those actual nutrients. But the way our mix works, when we're soil conditioning, when is there a bad time to condition the soil? And also here, it doesn't get cold enough to where the roots stop growing. When you get further north and the soil temps stay cold, you could make the argument, don't fertilize in the winter because the tree is totally dormant. For us here, the roots grow most of the time for us. They might slow down for periods of time, but they grow throughout the winter for us here in North Texas.
100%, I agree. And I think that, if we didn't have to, we wouldn't even put fertilizer in the mixture if we didn't, need to. But unfortunately, we do, just because, we lack certain nutrients here in North Texas. So
Right.
it's a big reason why we have to add, nitrogen and things like that in our fertilizer.
To help those trees grow as much as we can, yeah. Another common question that you get?
Another common question that I get, and this might actually be number one or number two, is, why can't I just have my landscaper prune or trim my trees? And whenever I hear that, the first thing that I say is I say, well, because they're going to trim your trees and not prune them.
Correct.
So, trimming is arbitrarily cutting branches without having a set objective. And a lot of times the customer is telling the landscapers what to do. Us as arborists, when we go out to a property, we're going to prune your trees, which is a technical term. And we have clear objectives and why we're doing what we're doing. So when our guys go in the tree, they know exactly why they're removing or reducing or doing whatever kind of pruning technique they're doing to meet that clear objective. Another thing is that why you shouldn't have your landscapers prune your trees is because, liability issues, safety issues. They don't go to the training or go through the training that our team has to go through. And they do this every single day of their lives. It's not, they prune trees sometimes and then do this sometimes. They're in trees every day, so they understand it. They feel comfortable with it. And we feel comfortable telling somebody if we don't feel comfortable with our guys doing it. So right. I think that's why.
Yeah, there's definitely, some inherent dangers in the work that we do. You're talking about large, heavy limbs overhead, over the workers, over the roof, over cars. There's a lot of potential consequences. And when you're not trained, those potential consequences, the chance of an accident or something bad happening go up. Of course, we don't ever want to see any property damage or hear anybody get hurt. But like you said, that's why, our production crews are highly trained and wear all the proper safety gear and, all that good stuff. Whereas not every landscaper, but in general, anybody can go buy a chainsaw and the chainsaw will cut the tree.
Yeah, a homeowner could buy a chainsaw and do it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I think it's important to mention that, we have to follow certain standards, so there is an added level of, safety there, right? The landscaper, he's not familiar with the rules that we have to follow when we're in trees, to help to mitigate the amount of danger there is, because it's a dangerous job. The guys, it doesn't matter if it's a 20-foot tree or if it's an 80-foot tree, it's dangerous. And so I think that making sure everybody goes home at the end of the day, and everybody is safe plays a big factor in that, because the landscaper may, do something, or try to tackle something that he, doesn't really know. It's his first time doing it. And then he gets hurt. And what's going to happen to his family, and I understand that they just, are out there trying to make money, but, safety and life is more important, and our guys are, safety is key.
And, one of the other differences between having us as arborists and our production guys versus just somebody to come out and cut your trees is we're not afraid to tell a customer no, or ask why. Why remove that particular limb? Or, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that to your tree. And, that takes a lot of knowledge to be able to say that. Not to be rude about it, but, like we said, if it's not going to meet an objective or cause undue harm to the tree, well, then why do it? And us as arborists, it's our job to ask those questions or to say no, frankly, sometimes if we feel that strongly about it, that we won't do that kind of work.
Yeah, and I've had to tell people that I won't do it just because it doesn't meet the objective or it's improper pruning. And I completely agree with that.
So, James, what would be some of the consequences of improper pruning?
Well, there's a lot of ways to improperly prune a tree.
What's the most common one that we see all the time?
I would say over pruning. That's where somebody just goes in the tree and takes out as much as possible. And a lot of times, they don't know why they're doing it. They don't have a clear objective. And I think that, if they're not certified arborists, and if they are, then that's unfortunate. But if they aren't, they don't understand that, the tree's going to respond by trying to grow a crazy amount of that back, and the tree's just going to look awful next year. And now you're going to be stuck in this. Either we come out and tell them, let's not prune it, it's going to look like this for a while, let's let it fill back in, or they're going to be pruning it every single year, and so that's definitely the biggest issue. The second one is, every time that we cut a branch or our team cuts a branch, there's a right way to do it. Just like everything else in life, there's a right way, there's a wrong way. And so we have a lot of what's called heading cuts on the trees. And whenever we do those heading cuts, the tree can't actually do its natural process of the sealing that we talked about earlier. And so a lot of times we have to go in there and correct those cuts anyways. Either way, I think having the certified arborist out to make sure that your trees don't get over pruned and don't get improperly pruned is the best decision for your tree.
And I tell my customers all the time that, stripping the middle out is easy because you can reach it from the ground. In reality, you should take material from the edges because you're reducing that branch end weight and the chance for failure, and leave the middle alone. Unless it's dead wood or crossing, we do take out material from the middle, but we don't just strip it out just because. And when we talk about objectives, more often than not, it's, well, I want to get more sunlight through this tree. And, have to politely explain to them, well, by doing that, you didn't increase the sunlight. Mm-hmm. All you did was strip out the middle. When you leave the ends full, that's where your sunlight, is still getting hit on the edges of the tree. Stripping the middle out didn't do much other than just over prune the tree.
I had a case of that yesterday where the lady's house was north facing, and so she's not getting a lot of sunlight at all. And she thought that going inside of the tree and thinning it out was going to solve her problem. And I'd explained to her, no, there's ways that we can try to by creating separation between structures and trying to maybe raise and balance a canopy to get more east and west sunlight, but it's a difficult objective.
Well, and you can't help when you have the tree in the center of the yard and a 2-story house, and the sun tracks behind the house. There's no pruning objective that's going to fix that issue. We can make the tree look great, we can meet the clearance issues, but if sunlight is the objective, there's no way to achieve that.
Yeah, it's a difficult objective.
So where would you go to find more information about proper pruning?
So you can go to our website at TreeNewal.com and find the phone number there to call one of our customer service representatives to set up an appointment with one of our certified arborists.